Hello, and welcome to Non Sequitur News for July 19th, 2024. This is a time machine episode. I wasn't able to do the show yesterday, so I'm in the July 20th time frame, but in the time machine, I get to go back through ohmTown.com, and you can too. You can just go over to ohmTown.com, and at the very top, in the month you're in, you can actually just hit the day. Or you can hit the month and the day, or you can go all the way back to 2020 and grab headlines that we've been acquiring, aggregating just a little headline and a little snippet that teases you to go over to the source. But I use ohmTown.com to manage my information overload. Go over, you can do the same thing, become a citizen now. Then go over to twitch.tv and follow us there. And if you're more inclined to YouTube, you can go over to youtube.com/ohmTown and watch us there. And the co-host right there, the Sentient AI from the future, isn't available today, but I am Mayor Watt. I am your host for today's Non Sequitur News, Season 3, Episode 201. Everything is brought to you by ohmTown.com. So be kind. Rewind. No, sorry, wait, that's a different phrase. No, follow us everywhere. Download the podcast. There's 7 of them. And on the other side of this, I'm going to read to you what we're going to be talking. Actually, and let me do it now. So we're going to be talking about phasing out plastics. CrowdStrike says, my bad. Convergence is the problem. What is the solution? That's actually following up on the CrowdStrike issue from yesterday. We're going to talk about summer games, airline strike avoided, Costco food buckets that last 25 years, how destinations avoid overtourism, a dress code change for schools, a copyright strike for showing terms of service, and Microsoft says reboot a bunch. Maybe it'll work. And that too is about the CrowdStrike issue. That and more. A little bit of snark. Hey, I just realized that I need to do something really quick, so let me do this while we're starting the show. It's something that I need to kind of automate because, well, it takes a little bit of aligning to get it done right. But we have show notes, and those show notes end up in our VOD over on Twitch, but not YouTube, because I actually reproduce the show as a separate live stream and a separate video. And over there, you can actually get the show notes already listed. Really easy. You don't have to watch a VOD to get to them. But if you're in the chat, you can actually hit !NSN. Now you can. And it will show you all of the articles that we're going to be talking about today. Although, because of the way that I just put them into the system, they're kind of wonky. If you hit !pod, that'll give you a list of all of the podcasts. We actually do 7 total, but Non Sequitur News is the only daily. And the other 6 are Reality Hacker, Wanted, WarCrafters, The Continuity Report, Technology Today, and 4-Wheel Tech. They all are more niche focused. Non Sequitur News follows all of the news that's in ohmTown, not just a specific topic. And if you want all of the show note commands to get all of the show notes from our previous last episodes, so all 7 tomorrow are going to get an update for show notes, but these are now almost a week old because they're weekly shows. But again, just so I remind everybody, Non Sequitur News is a daily show. Anyway, you'll have to go over to either the podcast and download that to get the show notes after 60 days. And it's kind of usually easier to just go over to either YouTube or the podcast. And that's where you can get the long-term show notes, because I don't post them on Twitch, because Twitch, after 60 days, because I pay for the Prime, Turbo or something. I can't remember what it's called. Yeah, Turbo. I get 60 days because I'm not a partner or anything. And then they just delete it and it's gone forever. So you have to go over to one of those other 2 solutions to get show notes. Anyway, let's get into today's articles. The first article is going to be in the Mobile Channel. U.S. to phase out federal purchase of single-use plastics. I guess everything old is new again. See, there was a time where we didn't use plastics. We used metal utensils. And people washed things. But now U.S. to phase out federal purchase of single-use plastics. So I wonder what the solution is going to be, right? We have this problem with microplastics. And as we move away or discover some new solutions, we try to phase out plastics. Those new solutions are usually, well, old solutions. Glass, metal, maybe even wood. Who knows? Wood, though, usually is somewhat unsanitary, and that, although it's biodegradable, depending on how it's made, may make it difficult. Anyway, pollution is pollution. We need to recycle more. Plastics aren't making it into the recycling system, and it's kind of a hot mess to recycle plastics, literally. President Joe Biden's administration on Friday announced plans to phase out single-use plastics in all federal operations by 2035 as a part of a broader effort to combat what's deemed as a rising global crisis. We've talked about this here in ohmTown for quite a while. Just a side comment about this. Me even mentioning the administration will prevent me from promoting this video. So if you can tell people about us, that would be great. Go let a friend know. We also have a Discord where you can chat about the show afterward if you're interested. There's a Patreon, but it's basically just for support. We don't actually, we haven't done any extra stuff for the Patreon side of things yet. But in time we will. At any rate, they have this great video over at phys.org. There's no byline in this, but I don't know where it's coming from, who wrote the article. It just has editor notes, but no byline. Weird. Anyway, there's this picture of a faucet with the tap just nothing but plastic. It's an art piece by Benjamin von Wong, called Giant Plastic Tap. It'd be funny if the actual tap is plastic as well. But it looks like a bunch of stuff all just piled up, flowing like water out of this faucet. So plastic production and waste have doubled over the past 2 decades, littering our ocean, poisoning the air of communities near production facilities, and threatening public health, the administration said in a statement. Under the new goal, the federal government will phase out federal procurement of single-use plastics from food service operations, events, and packaging by 2027. So this is pretty fast. And from all federal operations by 2035. Now, they talk about other things like 33 billion pounds, which is a stat that comes from Oceana, which is a nonprofit, and that they applaud the administration. I don't know how they're actually going to solve this, but I'd have to read the 83-page document. It says targeting plastic population at the stages of production, processing, use, and disposal. The World Wildlife Fund has warned that unless governments reach an ambitious agreement with legally binding rules, global plastic pollution will set to triple by 2040, and its population and motivation. If people don't find a cheaper, easy alternative to plastic, they'll stick to plastic. I'm switching more and more to glass, and either aluminum or steel. Really depends on what the thing is, because you can't put stuff like tomato sauce inside anything that reacts. So even aluminum will react with the acids that are in tomato sauce. So you have to put it in glass. And the lids are usually lined with something plastic and or rubber, or something similar to it. It really is plastic. Like tin cans are lined with a plastic lining that's bonded, sprayed into the container to keep it from reacting with whatever is inside it. And you always know when that lining has been broken because of a dent, because it tastes metallic. Either that or something seriously wrong. Anyway, let's keep moving on. The next article's over in non sequitur news. Let me make sure something. Yeah, the next article is over in Non Sequitur News. A massive IT outage is a disturbing reminder of how dependent we all are on just a few companies. I've been talking about this issue, mergers and acquisitions and convergence in general, being a potential threat as it becomes a single point of failure. And this CrowdStrike issue goes straight to the heart of it. So a massive IT outage Friday disrupted services globally, affecting companies from airlines to banks. That isn't so far of a stretch away from each other, but from A to Z, companies around the world were impacted by this, by one company pushing an update en masse without any constraint and without apparently any testing in any broad spectrum staged way, and at a horrible time. You don't do it on a Friday unless you've already got everybody on board to stay over the weekend to react to any issues. And when I say everybody, I mean the target of the updates. That means everybody at every enterprise, or anybody that can fall victim to a bad patch, remote patch pushed into the system, causes this outage. And so it failed closed, and that failed closed was blue screens of death, not being able to log in, systems shutting down entirely, not being able to prosecute an API call or anything like that. Even if a system was working, it couldn't interact with a system that was brought offline because of the CrowdStrike update. So they say experts warn these technical disruptions could worsen, but that there's no easy fix. There's no but there. Okay? Experts warn these technical disruptions could worsen, but that there's no easy fix. There's no but there. A but implies some other outcome than worse. The statement should have read, experts warn these technical disruptions could worsen and there is no easy fix, because as we'll find out later on, and there's another article at the very end that we talk about it. You don't do an update on Fridays. You don't do it en masse to everybody until you've verified across a large swath that everything is A-okay. Yet like zero headaches, and then you can push it. And even then, with a large organization, you don't roll it out to everybody. You roll it out in tranches. You see where the hiccups are. You address the hiccups either in the patch, and then you repatch. You start it with the original update, and then you roll it out to the original one that you've patched the bugs with, and you update it again, and then you roll out another one. You roll out another one, and roll out to tranches, to segments, dunk, 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 until you get everybody. That's not what happened here. Some 25,000 customers apparently got this patch all at once. So they said if you had to fly, log into your bank, go for elective surgery, actually just show up for treatment somewhere, not just elective surgery, the massive IT outage Friday offered a reminder we're all in this technical morass together. And it's primarily an issue because we're bound to the effects of mergers and acquisitions, large amounts of wealth controlling everything. So there may be other solutions, but CrowdStrike is deemed the de facto solution. If you talk to people in cybersecurity, they basically go, yeah, CrowdStrike. And while I know very well the benefits of cybersecurity, I would prefer balkanization because there isn't a single point of failure for everybody. Now, if I would have been taking a flight this weekend, I would have been without for an extraordinary amount of time for my lifestyle, because I wouldn't have been able to perform certain functions, right? And so am I ever going to see any of that opportunity cost back, that money, that time? No, it's gone. I would have had to sit around, and people were like, well, you could have used pen and paper or your computer and then do it later. Well, no, not if you use remote systems. That's not how it works. So this article that we're talking about specifically is over at businessinsider.com by Tim Paradise, and CrowdStrike is the company that pushed this software update. It wasn't a hack. It wasn't something hinky. It was a mistake. Somebody pushed code that was just bad. So it says part of the reason tech snafus like this ripple across the globe faster than ever is that many of the systems we rely on are largely invisible to many of us who depend on them, but all connected in the background. The equivalent to society and my mental processes is associative thinking. Everything is interconnected. You just have to look deep enough and you'll find the connection. So the outage hit everyday people. Quote, I tried to log into my bank account this morning and I was like, what the heck is going on? One man told Business Insider. Likely the server that was doing the login facilitation was connected to a server, or is a server, that had Microsoft utilizing CrowdStrike cybersecurity defense systems. And when CrowdStrike updated, it brought down the server with a thing called a BSOD, blue screen of death. So the patch from CrowdStrike appeared to have flowed through the Microsoft's operating system, or to the Microsoft operating system. And that is what a patch does, basically. The company's OS is so dominant that the domino effect fanned outward from there to the systems that you check, that check you into the airport. Is actually probably a group policy. And that group policy had some flaw in it that caused a conflict, and instead of failing open, it failed closed in a seriously bad way, to a blue screen of death. Basically a driver or something like that failed. So it says the company's OS is so dominant, right? And so when CrowdStrike and the operating system, basically a firewall, can't communicate and the system throws an error, it has to deal with it in some way. When it deals with it poorly, you get a blue screen of death. Or, and here's the worst part of it, it could have failed the other way. If it failed open and still prosecuted whatever requests were made and exposed people's data, that would have been worse because people would have gone about their day thinking everything is fine. This happened with Heartbleed, which was a modification to the OpenSSL protocol, where somebody removed a bit of code and the Heartbeat protocol would send out more information, including unencrypted passwords in the packets that it was responding to the Heartbeat ping, a request, usually at banks. It was exposing people's information. Pretty bad. So Windows had about 72% of the global market share of operating systems as of February, according to data from Statista. That compares with about 15% of Apple's Mac OS. Mac OS doesn't do servers, so the comparison to Windows, it isn't just Windows, it's Windows servers, and there's an academic version, and there are point of sale versions of it, and there's all kinds of versions of Windows. It's very balkanized in terms of the strata that you can acquire it in, but Mac OS is Mac OS. So by one estimate, CrowdStrike's market share in the endpoint protection security category is nearly 24%. Yeah, somewhere around 25,000 customers is my understanding. So they say that we're in for a bumpy ride, and this is because of convergence. Everything is converging on one declared winner. This is the one that everybody feels is the most beneficial. And if you do anything short of that, things like insurance and investors and others find perhaps liability. So they all converge in this one location, plus sales and other things. People want to save money. Now, this is probably not an issue with like greed. This is just a mistake. But the mistake amplifies the fact that there's a problem here. I don't even know what this is going to do, because they say meantime, the government won't save the day. And that's because the Chevron doctrine basically is overturned. So it limits government regulation of businesses in general, because the businesses are actually the ones that are supposed to be the subject matter experts providing guidance to the government. And then the businesses and the states are supposed to remedy the issue. But I'm surprised that the Chevron doctrine was overturned, because the Commerce Clause should be kind of the guiding document as to what the government can implement. And having taken part in some discussions regarding state to federal policy creation, I'm really surprised that any state would want unabated control, because we all benefit from more communication about how to do things, but not business. Business likes to go their own way, and they say that government is bad this, bad that. But then look what happens when there isn't necessarily enough government oversight and engagement and agency. Except that business has to have government agency for certain things, including cybersecurity. Anyway, let's move on. We'll talk about it some more as time goes on. There will be probably more of a debrief as time goes on. The next article, though, is about this in a slightly different way. Flights, hospitals, Olympics, how the tech outage is impacting global operations. The outage has been attributed to a defect in software update from the company called CrowdStrike, which said shortly after 6 a.m. the issue had been identified, isolated, and a fix has been deployed. The underlying cause has been fixed. However, residual impact is continuing to affect some Microsoft 365 apps and services and others, including the justice system in New York apparently was negatively impacted by this, because the court system had been shut down for a time. I'm not sure how long. I stopped babysitting it because the solution would be whatever the solution would be. There's very little that we as end users can do if we have to rely on an enterprise system. And that's one of the things that I wanted to talk about, particularly in this situation. You as an end user don't get impacted by this if you have a fully working local system that doesn't reach out for anything having to do with CrowdStrike protected systems. So if you have to use a computer that is remote for all of its work, you may not have been able to do anything, except that you could log in locally and do something locally, except all your resources are somewhere else, usually if you work in a cloud system. Anyway, Julia Shapiro and Rebecca Klar put this article together over at The Hill. More than 3,000 flights had been canceled. More than 27,000 flights have been delayed, according to the flight tracking system. FlightAware, American, Delta, United Airlines halted flights early Friday morning due to the issue. Around 6:30 a.m., United said on Twitter that some flights were resuming as it worked to fully restore its systems, and warned the customers traveling Friday that they may experience delays. Then there were hospitals and others, broadcasters, trains. Even the Olympics in Paris said that there was an outage, but it was limited impact on the event 1 week before the opening ceremony. They've got other things to worry about, I guess. Pardon me, I'm sorry about the cough. So emergency services went down in several places across the U.S. due to the outage. Alaska State Trooper said on Facebook that around 2:30 a.m. that many 911 or 911 non-emergency call centers were not working correctly across the state of Alaska. I suppose if it was I don't know when the patch actually went into implementation, but anyway, they said that it was back up some 2 hours later. And they talk about government as well. Maricopa County Elections Department in Arizona is also experiencing an outage at some voting locations, which is just amplifying kind of bullshit. Oh, sorry, baloney. that there has to be something going on with the election at 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to draw the ire of somebody. I'm sure somebody's gonna. I shouldn't even have brought politics into the stream, but anyway, let's move on. The next article is over in the Wanted channel, which is one of our 7 shows. And we do now all of the shows on Sunday, so we do a full 8-hour stream. It's broken up into hour-plus segments, and we talk about 10 articles in each of the 7 shows, starting with non-sequitur news, probably around 10 or 11 tomorrow, and then moving on until we're done with the show. So in the summertime, and it's the summertime, and living is easy, or it's winter, and you want it to be summer, or it's fall, and you're tired of it being 90 degrees outside, but you're still absolutely in love with the vibe of summer, even if you're not a fan of sweating through your clothes. So the article is over at pocket-lint or pocket-lint.com. Oliver Vandervoort put the article together, and they have 7 games to kind of tease you into playing summer games. So Animal Crossing New Horizons says island living was never better. If you've never played this, it's a Nintendo Switch game. It's a lot of fun to watch people playing this stuff, but I make it abundantly clear my bias is legit that I don't really like Nintendo. But that doesn't stop me from promoting their stuff and talking about it. I honestly think that it's a great platform, and people can have fun playing the games. I do have a Switch, but at any rate. So it's a chill, cozy game that you can play. It's not frenetic. It's not chaotic. It's one of those chill games. So Planet of Lana, which I've never played. It's for PC, Xbox One. Well, Xbox, might as well just say Xbox. A lush and green world, even if it's not laid back summer fun, except that they're writing about it in a summer fun game context. So while it doesn't sound like a real summery game, because it says Planet of Lana is a platforming game that offers some puzzles as well as a side-scrolling perspective. In the game, the player assumes control of Lana, a young girl who explores the world that is invaded by hostile alien machines in order to rescue her sister who has been abducted. So that doesn't seem very summery, but I don't know, maybe the sister is named Summer. Then there's Super Mario Sunshine, Pokemon Sun and Moon. Oh boy. And then A Short Hike. They said that they could have just called the game Summer. A Short Hike. So let's see. While the point of the game isn't entirely to do just the kind of stuff you do in summer, it's a big part of the gameplay. It's the one of the games on the list that evoke the summer feel, but there are none of that that do it better than A Short Hike. The main character, as Claire, is even sent off on a kind of summer camp adventure. The end game has a whole lot to do more with family and relationships, but while you're leaning all of that way, or while you're leaning all of that, I think it's learning. This is one of those games that can remind you of your own summers and maybe even make you want to put down the controller and head outside, touch grass. Then there's Firewatch, which is what you do. Dead Island, which is horror. And that's it. That was their number 7 game. So let's move on. You can, again, get all of these links just by typing in !NSN. The next article is over in the mobile channel. American Airlines and flight attendants have reached a deal to avoid a strike. That's pretty much all that there is to this. Melvin Backman put the article together. A tentative agreement will get them their first collective raise in 5 years. Yeah. Massive profits, folks. Massive profits. And these people haven't gotten a raise in 5 years. Yeah, and there's more people on planes. There's less options for like drinks and amenities, and people are ruder than ever. And God, so record profits. Yeah, I know it's a real pain having moderate profits and everybody's still having some freaking money in their bank account so that they can save up to put a down payment on a house. I saw a TikTok recently about somebody that's absolutely livid, and I think that the solution that I came up with, which nobody's going to like if they're big business and they think sociopathically that they deserve everything that they can pull out of everybody's pockets without regard, because again, it's a sociological force to be a billionaire where you have no care in the world for what anybody says or does, because you can basically buy their organization and fire anybody, or with a donation fire somebody, etc. It's kind of surreal that we're at this point. But what I was going to get at regarding housing and salary and all of that is, you can be somewhere around 3 or 4 times the poverty rate and still not be able to afford getting a median priced house. And I think that's kind of a problem, because then you can't even qualify for an apartment in many cases because you're not making enough, and they want the first and last of the rent, and they want a deposit, and then you still have to pay the rent, and it's paying somebody else's mortgage. It's quite shocking. And it's not like, every once in a while you'll find an anomaly, somebody that worked hard, saved up, but there's always, when you peel back the layers of the onion, there's always a benefactor. Somebody helped from a position of privilege make somebody become a millionaire and financially safe. There's always something, if you can find it out. Usually they hide it. So anyway, so it says here, the terms of the deal were not immediately available, but the APFA said it would net some members billions of additional dollars into compensation. It says its members billions of dollars. Yeah, we're talking about everybody, not just one person. It would net all of its members somewhere to the tune of billions of dollars, additional dollars into compensation and work rules. Then it's spread out across that massive number of people. The last contract for American Airlines flight attendants ran out in 2019. Negotiations were interrupted by COVID-19's pandemic. But even then, talks were slow going, though the APFA nearly unanimously approved a strike in August. Strict rules around airline workers' union actions meant that they had to go through and then get released from federally mediated negotiations before they could do a work stoppage. Still, the union was glad to use the possibility as leverage. I think the problem here is that there were requirements that they work at a disadvantage, limited compensation through record profits, even through the pandemic. There are issues where the company suffered, but so did the people, much greater than the company did, because the company suffered. They weren't working either, so the employees didn't just get paid. Anyway, yeah, there's always more to this. Okay, let's keep going though. This is a time machine episode, so I got to keep moving. The next article is over in the mobile channel. Costco is selling food buckets that last 25 years. Costco Wholesale wants shoppers to be prepared in case a world disruptive event should take place. But this is the whole prepper mentality. Francisco Velasquez, which could literally be self-fulfilled prophecy, because people talking about this with enough weight turn it into something that's actually going to happen, because there are other people that see that they can that they can prey on this. And so, for instance, why in the world is there buckets of food that last 25 years just in case there is something that's going to happen, except that there hasn't been anything ever that has really stopped it. except for greed and power, and greed and power. And if we as a society would figure out, hey, look, greed and power, it goes hand in hand with conflict, and the complete collapse of the economic system for long swaths of time, you'd think that we'd learn our freaking lessons, but no, that's not what's going on. So Costco has these giant buckets. ReadyWise emergency food bucket will do the trick. A big bucket, which is being sold for $80, 150 total servings of various food items. Every time I've ever had any of this stuff, it was like eating cardboard. 25-year shelf life. You still need water. But you can eat pasta Alfredo, cheesy macaroni, teriyaki rice, even potato pot pie, which might be the only one that really tastes like potato pot pie because, well, there's a spectrum. Anyway, Costco said the emergency bucket is one way to hedge against unpredictability, which it said has become a constant. Moreover, the assortment is intended to be a key part of shoppers' emergency preparedness. The department store chain pointed to severe weather, unexpected job transitions, and food shortages as examples of why the protein bucket would come in handy. So yeah, there's always a reason as to why you could have one of these. I suppose if you're in a region where you're going to have severe weather, like a hurricane or tornadoes, and you're going to be locked away where you can't actually get out, then I suppose this would do the trick, as long as you have the water and the means to consume it. So it says our selection of freeze-dried and dehydrated foods isn't just about immediate convenience, it's about the resilience that extends into the future, says Costco. Yeah, whenever anybody talks about this kind of stuff, they think about, doom and gloom, and I'm not like that. So let's move on. The next article, 7 creative ways hot destinations. 1 second. So 7 creative ways hot destinations are combating overtourism, from obstructing views to etiquette violation fines. So we've talked about this. Oh yeah, so sorry, I got a message saying hardtack, and if you've ever let me back up. So when I first saw that message, I thought that they were talking about going in a different direction. But the food buckets, you could just make hardtack, and just go look up at what is it called? Oh goodness, I forgot the name of it. It's a food history YouTube channel, Max Miller. Oh goodness. It's not called Eating History. It's Tasting History. That's it. Thank you. Yeah, so Max Miller is the host, and Tasting History is the YouTube channel. You'll love it. Just go over and watch him. It's hilarious. He does an episode on hardtack, and it's like taking 2 hockey pucks and clacking them together when he actually demonstrates how hard they are. Okay, so let's move on to the other article. Sorry. So 7 creative ways hot destinations are combating overtourism, from obstructing views to etiquette violation fines. Popular vacation spots are actively deterring tourists to combat overtourism. Local governments are issuing tourist curfews and blocking Instagram hotspots. Locals are protesting mass tourism and creating street art with messaging to keep tourists away. Some of them have been spraying people with water and telling people to, basically go home. And I saw a video a long time ago about somebody basically harassing someone in local garb, in local historical garb, and like a culturally relevant dress. And the person was being such a main character POS that I wanted to crawl through the internet and pop out of their camera and smack them. It was so rude and intrusive and disrespectful that I am never surprised by local communities going, y'all need to go to hell. Even if it does hurt them financially, the general population doesn't necessarily benefit from tourism. Yes, there's more money and taxes and all that going to the government, but that doesn't necessarily trickle all the way down. So too many tourists visit the world's hottest destinations, from Italy to Amsterdam to Barcelona. As a result, locals regularly endure massive crowds, traffic jams, increasing living costs. Businesses come in and they buy property, and then they basically Airbnb it, or they rent it out as direct rentals, not through Airbnb. And because big business is buying properties, you end up having to pay a higher price because supply and demand mechanics. But it's, again, self-fulfilled local, not necessarily local, it could be an international business, buying the real estate. And I think that big businesses should be banned. I don't think anybody should own more than the properties that they are actually living in. Even businesses, they should be leasing them, or making their own on their property apartments, condos, or whatever. Because then it's their property, it's in their space, it's theirs, but they're bound by their limitations, not community builders building for private purchase. Citizens should be able to purchase, but let's not go there for this entire article. Joey Haddon over at businessinsider.com put the article together. They've got a picture of somebody putting up what amounts to a tarp to block the view of some location that's a tourist trap. And then on another picture that's here on Business Insider, they've got a giant mouse trap, and it's titled Tourist Trap. It's got it painted on the wood like a mouse trap, and it's got a little ice cream sitting on the trap activation mechanism. Yeah. And the problem is that when you have an appropriate level of tourism, it's okay. But that's not what happens. They come, a lot of tourists are really horrible, entitled, they're a hot mess, and they leave mess, and then everybody has to pick it up because they think, well, I spent my money, I can just do whatever the hell I want. But they would be livid if somebody were to do that in their yard. But you go to some other country and you can be a real D-bag. So travel sustainability experts previously told Business Insider that over-tourism negatively impacts destinations. People love to visit historic cities in Europe and popular national parks around the U.S., but these places simply weren't built to serve millions of travelers going there during peak seasons. It's gotten so bad that popular vacation spots are actively trying to deter visitors rather than attract them. And I've already given some examples of it. This is an older picture that it says earlier this month, but I thought it was further back. Where people were using squirt guns to squirt tourists, basically from local Barcelona, spraying tourists. So Business Insider previously reported that locals held up signs while blocking a tunnel in the town's main road. There were just 700 residents. BBC reported that the destination see up to 10,000 tourists daily during the busy season. You know what? I'm sorry. Your community is just so attractive that you're just going to have to make it ugly, Oh, look, they're doing that. Oh, okay. But that's what's going to happen, If people don't have any self-control and everybody converges on the one place, it's because life has been made so that we have to work 40 hours a week. Or more. We only get 2 weeks of existence to be totally on our own. And that's meted out in a very given time so that everybody has to show up someplace at the same time, usually summer when kids are out of school. And then they all converge in this one place. And it might slightly be different around the world, but the reason why you end up with 10,000 tourists daily during the busy season, that right there is the problem. It's because we're working so hard that the only free time we have is when everybody else has free time. And there's 8 billion people on the planet, so 8.5, I think. Anyway, in Nice, France, an anonymous artist who goes by Too Late creates unique sculptures to deter tourists in public spaces, they told Business Insider in the Instagram message. For example, they made an ice cream cone to attract tourists' attention and placed it in the Promenade des Anglais, and it's basically a gigantic mousetrap, which is the picture that you see in other places on this page. I won't go through the whole thing. Y'all can go over and check it all out, but yeah, prices are going through the roof, and they're going to be handing out fines and doing all kinds of stuff, blocking access to touristy locations. But there's ways around that. There, like in Egypt, you can pay somebody, and they'll facilitate you getting access to something that others did not. I mean, where there's a will, there's a way. Motivation, and money seems to really make the difference. Let's keep going. The next article is over in Non Sequitur News. School dress code to change for nearly 1 million Americans. So this is really niche, but New York schools cannot discriminate against student expression in dress code thanks to new legislation. Hey, that's fine. Now let's talk about choice of dress. So Alice Higham, or Higham, I'm not sure how they pronounce it, put the article together on Thursday. New York City Council approved legislation that will require the New York State Education Department, or NYSED, school dress code to allow students to express themselves. Resolution 292 pushes for an inclusive dress code to account for diverse cultures, gender expression, and body diversity, according to Council Member Althea Stevens, who sponsored the legislation. The council will now be required to post dress code policies on its website and report on policies in public schools, including information about whether each school has a dress code policy and data on dress code violations and penalties broken down by month, week, and school, race, and gender, which I think that's going to be problematic, because anything that isn't determined to be somebody's aligned ideology is going to draw their ire, I'm sure. I wish that, and that's all it can be, is that people's choice of dress code wouldn't be offensive to be offensive. But I guarantee you somebody's going to push the limit of this. And what I find offensive is different than what somebody else finds offensive. Yeah, I don't, somebody may say that this shirt that I'm wearing is offensive, or even the fact that I'm talking about offense, needs to be, it is offensive. So students and families should have the opportunity to easily access any school's dress code policy in a central location on the Department of Education's website and determine if their individual school's policy are truly non-discriminatory and aligned with DOE guidelines. Yeah, I wish we could just wear what we want to wear and people don't get bent out of shape because of it. And the choices we make to wear in public and arguably in a school, right, are appropriate for the location. But what is your appropriate versus my appropriate? It says here, finally, while school districts often cite safety as the reason for having a dress code, many dress codes include elements that may make the school environment less equitable and safe for students, the GAO said in a 2022 report on K-12 education, which is said is more likely to impact girls and students of color. I'm really curious about what these are. They refer to things like skirts, tank tops, leggings, than they would clothing typically worn by boys like muscle shirts. They restrict items typically worn by girls. What? Okay. Well, anyway, why would they? Yeah, why would they allow muscle shirts and not tank tops? And leggings, I guess, can get caught on something. It's kind of like wearing gloves when you're grinding something down. You shouldn't wear gloves when grinding something down because the wheel can grab the glove and pull your hand in. but I suppose the leggings are, or is it the other way around? You should be wearing, I'm not even sure. I'm really curious now. Huh. If you know and you show up to chat, come and let me know. That'd be great. 2 more articles and then we're out of here. The next article is over in Non Sequitur News. Sample library company copyright strikes YouTuber over showing their terms of service. And this is insane. And I'm glad that Tech Dirt is the one that actually brought this to my awareness. So terms of service are a reality we deal with all the time in digital goods and services. And by deal with, the author mostly means that we don't read them and simply agree to whatever they say because we don't have any bargaining power except to move on. Assuming that there's nothing crazy in them, of course, and there's sometimes crazy shit and crazy stuff in them, like you can't sell the car, otherwise you have to pay Tesla for the sale of the vehicle. That's the Cybertruck. You can't sell it for a year. Anyway, but that's also caused a lot of problems with customers of these products suddenly having to change, foisted upon them, or realizing that they can't do with their purchase what they thought they could do, all of which are covered by the terms of service, which was essentially unread. Yeah, because usually it's in some drawn out legalese. By the way, that's actually one of the shows here under Society, Politics, and Law over at ohmTown.com. So Law Nerd is a deeper discussion about law. Policy Metrics is what this would be discussing. It's a show that I want to put together where we take terms of service, terms of use, policy, and we talk about it. Break it down, discuss the minutia of it, and make it entertaining instead of what it is, which is legal desiccant. I mean, it dries you out of not just bodily fluids, but your soul. And I want to make it a little more entertaining. And then there's Right Protect, which is about copyright and trademark patents, things like that, talking about it. And again, trying to make it a little more entertaining. Some attorneys in LawTube make it entertaining. So I've been kind of holding off on pursuing that because I'm not an attorney. And well, I mean, I guess I could get some attorneys to co-host, but there's a complex relationship with attorneys and non-attorneys. All right. Well, anyway, so let's go look at the techdirt.com framework here, what they wrote. Timothy Gaynor over at techdirt.com put the article together from the What Are You Hiding department. They always make a unique department for their articles, and I love it. You're going to have to go over and read the minutia of this because there's always stuff that I kind of gloss over that you may find particularly interesting, but terms of service, right? There's always they cause a lot of problems sometimes with customers when they change it. So as a result, there are some folks out there who like to dive into the terms of service for targeted industries. YouTuber Miss Crystal's channel, Top Music Attorney, is one example of this. She's an attorney and musical artist who dives into terms of service within the music industry, analyzing them and pulling out anything that they would be of interest or a concern to a customer of the product or service. For instance, she covered the terms of service for Splice, which provides a catalog of royalty-free music samples for musicians to use. And in their breakdown and in this article, they have a quote, I have a series where I go through the terms of service for these music businesses, and I tell you guys what these contracts say that you're being forced to sign in order to use these platforms. So the premise here is flawed. You're not forced to sign jack. You make the choice. If everybody would speak with their wallet and their non-compliance with this you just don't sign up, and we talk about it. And we say, look, these people are sitting there saying this, that, and the other, and to use their service, I'm not going to use their service. That's where they get hit. But you have to have public discourse because abuse happens in the dark. Nobody is out in public abusing other people. Somebody is going to stop it. Okay? Yeah, Mr. T basically said, almost a guiding light, except that I don't believe in in assaulting somebody, but everybody has a plan until they're punched in the face. And you can do the equivalent by not using the service and talking about how crappy their treatment is by way of the terms of service. And their only argument can possibly be, well, they can be a takedown notice, which thankfully I've only been notified of copyright violation, but not a strike, not yet at least. And it's usually because of music, and it's been because of Nintendo, and a couple of them from Netflix. Sorry, my brain just turned off for a second. I'm blacking out Netflix. Anyway, Crystal claims that she was handed a cease and desist order from Splice's legal department, which she suggested jumping on a phone call to clarify some of the stipulations of the company's terms of service, saying that she wanted to create a follow-up video for her audience's clarity. She says the call was productive and that Splice had agreed to update its terms of service to iron out flagged inconsistencies, and that she left feeling a positive resolution had been by all. So far, this reads as annoying but not terribly surprising. Then Splice issued a copyright strike against her channel. You have to get 3 of these and they will delete your account. Permanently terminated, 3 in 90 days. So now Splice has a problem. For starters, the original video Splice complained about is still up on her channel, and because of both the cease and desist and more so because of the copyright strike, a whole lot more attention is being paid. This is like a Streisand effect for this company. And I would say, don't use Splice anymore. You know? And they even mention a true Streisand effect in fashion. So Ms. Crystal's follow-up video, in which she tells the story of the cease and desist and getting a copyright strike and the issues surrounding Splice's toss as a whole, you'd have to assume that Splice took these actions because it wanted to limit the content of the video's critiques of its toss, which brings the article question that everyone should be asking: just what is in the terms of service that Splice is so terrified its customers and potential customers will see? Fortunately, a lot more people will get the answer to that question from Miss Crystal, all because Splice wanted to try and silence a critic. So go over to techdirt.com. The link in ohmTown, sample library, it's in the show notes. You can click it. It'll take you over to TechDirt, and you can read for the minutia, but it'll have both of the videos links embedded at the bottom of the article, still up on our up on her channel, and you can actually watch the follow-up video as well. All right, folks, one more, and I'll turn off the time machine, and we'll get ready for non sequitur news. I may end up doing this around 8 o'clock, so that I've got some mayoral duties that I need to take care of. So the next article, and the last one for today, again, this is July 19th. Okay, time machine. Microsoft on CrowdStrike outage. Have you tried turning it off and on 15 times? So if you are the victim of a BSOD from this CrowdStrike outage, it may take more than just booting it up again and again and again for something to sync. Again, I have not looked into it, although, well, I kind of end up doxing myself if I talk about it. So have you turned it off and on again? That familiar refrain from IT departments and the IT crowd is being echoed by Microsoft today and yesterday, actually, and today, as a way of fixing the faulty CrowdStrike update that has taken down thousands of Windows PCs and servers today. In a support note on Microsoft's Azure outage page, the company said that it had heard from customers that rebooting virtual machines and PCs multiple times can help. We've received feedback from customers that several reboots, as many as 15, have been reported that may fix this. But there may be other solutions, so you can't make it, IT up. Tom Warren over at TheVerge.com put the article together. And so, yeah, it says here, it should be easier for IT admins to mount a disk and attempt to delete the faulty file rather than having to boot machines into safe mode. But that may not actually be the solution either, depending on wherein things actually went wonky. It says, we've heard from some IT admins that rebooting is indeed fixing the problems. It's amazing that it's one of the worst global IT outages in history can be fixed by just turning it off and on again. A meme saves the day, but that's the limit of this article. Try it. If you've got a blue screen of death on Friday, see if you can log in. Again, I haven't looked at any forensic debrief of what actually happened and what is going on beyond the fact that people are just rebooting and it going back online. People that I've heard about having this issue, they've rebooted and it's been back online. But I don't know of anybody that's stuck in a permanent loop at this point, or even having to go in a manual reboot. So manual login, manual boot, which is kind of safe mode basically, and then doing something, but I haven't even heard of that solution yet. Anyway, that's it for today. I am Merwant, and the Sentient AI from the future. That visualizer right there is just kind of cruising along because they are not actively co-hosting today. Anyway, that's it. Thank you very much for hanging out. See you today, tomorrow, every day. Bye. I've been CrowdStrike. Oh, it's just a blue screen of death.